Happy Juneteenth, everybody. Let's see my shirt. I'm just Kim. Sitting on my patio, enjoying the evening. It's getting dark, so I don't know how I'm going to stay out here. Because these mosquitoes are eating my ass. Got my Kim sweatshirt on. So Juneteenth is the time where we commemorate the freedom of the slaves, and this is an important time. I know my family history, and I'm from Texas. My family was already pretty much independent. I don't know, free on the legal sense, but independent. In the sense of they were doing their own thing, they were educated. In 1860s, I have a history way back when, so I can tell you that, and I would love to share that story with you. The slave narrative is not the same for every family. But there, as far as my family's concerned, the Bible family, they're always like, "Oh, Montre Bible, is that your real last name?" Yes, it's my real last name. And the Bible family in Texas, there's a white Bible family too, and they actually are kind of from the same areas: Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas, and Louisiana. So the black Texas family is mostly from Oklahoma, Texas, and Louisiana. So that's where the majority of us are from. And you'll find the majority of Bible people in Dallas, Houston area. So if you come to Texas, you'll say, "Oh, Bible. Do you know Montre Bible?" They don't know. We don't know each other, but we are pretty much related. And there's also another sect of my family. They use the letter S. They call themselves Bibles. So instead of being Montre Bible, they'll be Montre Bibles. That's a different branch. And there's a long story with that. Some people consider them related, some people don't. But they're black. I think they're related. They're just cousins, basically. There was, I won't say, there was a white guy, the white guy, John Bible, who he had, he purchased, I guess, slaves. But I don't see it as a negative thing, because I don't hear negative stories about his getting these boys. He was a single man, as far as I know. There's no records of him being married. He was a single man. So back then, if you're gonna have a farm, you need farmhands, basically. So slavery back then, I'm not justifying slavery at all, but it was a sense of getting help or workers, whatever, you know. So you have this guy, and he was a part of the Union, and he was part of the Union Army. So he fought in the Civil War. John Bible, he fought in the Civil War, but he still purchased these young boys to work on his farm, basically. He purchased them from Oklahoma. One of them being one of my ancestors. So, what's your Nathaniel? My ancestor is John Bible. And then Nathaniel is my black ancestor. I have to remember because my father's name is Arlie Lawrence Ura, Nathaniel John. So I try to keep my ancestor names in my head, the first five. So I can go back to the 1800s. So the stories that I have heard is that in Texas, the Bible men were very free. They did what they wanted to do. They went around to different farms and found the ladies. As far as I know, there's a lot of people who are related to Bible men, but they don't have the Bible last name. And you'll find that here in Texas, they're like, oh, my dad's name or my grandfather's name was a Bible. He was a Bible, or something like that. Because the Bible men were, I won't say they were hoes, but they were hoes. They like to sleep around. They like to sleep around and get girls and stuff. And I had a lot of siblings. Even I have a lot of siblings. And I found out some more. But they were just kind of go around and stuff. But we originated from Oklahoma. And I don't have any more history past Oklahoma. Really, I don't. I took a DNA test, and I have some other heritage connected to the Caribbean. I found some relatives in Grenada, which was pretty cool. But other than that, I mean, like it kind of gets kind of shady, and I don't know like where the rest of my ancestors are from. You can say Africa, but it's crazy, right? You know what? Like every time the planes are so low, I don't get it. When it comes to ancestor DNA and stuff like that, like when I check I get more relatives in the Caribbean than I do in Africa. Like I don't get any cousins popping up on my ancestor DNA on Africa, but I do get some people in Caribbean and in the Americas. So I feel like I'm American. I'm American, full and completely. And I follow Dane Calloway, and Dane Calloway always talks about how Black Americans are indigenous to this country, and I agree with him. I think we have an indigenous Black population that are here, and I think I'm a part of that. So I agree with Dane Calloway on a lot of stuff. Just letting that flow. Like I can literally see these planes. They're like right above me. I live right by the airport, and it's crazy, y'all. I guess I've gotten used to it, and I ignore it, but But happy Juneteenth, everybody. Freedom of slavery. Well, like I said, back to my point. Every narrative that I read about my ancestors, they were already kind of independent on their own in the 1860s, 1870s. They were educated. Hey, Natalie. Much love to you. And then Juju Box. I know you. They were already independent. They were already, I won't say free on the legal sense, that's what I'm saying. So, well, I guess they were already free because in the United States federal sense, they were free. When I read about narratives about my ancestors, they, I might have to show you that because I found it on Ancestry.com. Someone interviewed one of my eldest relatives because our last name is Bible and stuff like that, and people are curious about that. So people are like, "Oh, where y'all from?" So I'm not the first, and so people have really investigated this. Like, who are we? And the questions and the interviews. They interviewed one of my ancestors. I have to find it on Ancestry.com. It's a whole thing, and she was it was a woman. I forget her name. Gosh, see, I get on camera and then I forget shit. But she was talking about how back then in Texas, at least my family, I don't know about everybody else. Like I said, it wasn't like Roots. Like a lot of people, they look at the movie Roots. Roots is a work of fiction. That's not a true story. It's a fictional story about slavery. But what she was like, basically, it was just a farm, and they had heard about the Civil War. The Civil War never came to Texas. The Civil War was on the East Coast. They had heard about it. So black folks in Texas had heard about the Civil War. I don't know how they heard about it. They didn't have the internet or anything, right? So they didn't have the internet. Maybe just word of mouth. But you know how long it takes word of mouth to travel? It's like, oh, they fighting over there on the East Coast. They fighting on the East Coast about something. But it didn't come to Texas, okay? So there was no Civil War in Texas. There was a Civil War on Tennessee and all that other bullshit. The Carolinas. Now, I do have a side of my family that's from the Carolinas. That's my mom's side of the family. Who's texting? But I'm just getting to know them because my mom was adopted. So my family history on that side, I don't know anything. I'm only talking about my dad's side of it, the Bible side, because I'm Montre Bible, and yes, that's my real last name. So yeah, the Texas Bible family did not know anything about what was going on. Like, there's a Civil War? They having a war over there? Like, when I say black folks didn't care, we didn't care. What they saying, like, black folks was like, oh, they're in slavery. Yeah, some black people. But the majority of black people, I would say, like I said, my family, we were already independent. Like, the guy, the white man who purchased the first few sons in my family, I don't hear bad stories about him. I don't hear about him beating slaves. It was just one guy, and he was trying to do a farm, and he needed young men, and he purchased a bunch of young boys because he wasn't married. And back in those days, you have to realize, like, if you're gonna have a farm, you need help. If you're gonna have a farm, I'm not justifying slavery at all, but it's the truth. It's the truth about the system back then. So uh, he did, but these were every census report that we have on the Bible family. He doesn't report them as slaves. He reports them as sons. So this was kind of like an illegitimate adoption for a lot of people. What I see, like a lot of people, and this is why we have to really rethink what we see, because it wasn't just black people in slavery. There were women, there were white people too, illegitimate children. I have an ancestor that's a white woman, and she was in slavery as well, because if you had illegitimate children, like the people were so religious, you could not have children out of wedlock. So if you had a child out of wedlock, that was really bad. So they would just throw their children away. Where did those children go? They went to orphanages. If they didn't have orphanages in the South, slave plantation. Really easy way to get rid of a kid. So I have one ancestor that was a white woman, and everyone talks about her. And this is where you get the mulattoes in my family. And a lot of folks who be like, who have Caucasian blood, they be like, oh, my ancestors was raped. No, some of y'all got ancestors that was white girls that was thrown away. Y'all got ancestors that was white girls that was thrown away because they were illegitimate daughters. Because you can't have children out of wedlock, and which is the case in my family. And she was raised around black people, and she married a brother. So and that's where we get the term white trash. White trash, throwing away white folks, children, white girls, throwing away white girls, and to the black community, white trash. And then they just basically become a part of our community, and and then that's how we mix within them. And so I have some ancestors with that. I have some Native American ancestors too. I've heard stories about him. Not too many, but he was in the mix too. I'll have to tell you later. I have to do some more research. But he's not a Bible. He was on another branch. But I've done so much research on my family tree and how the whole slave narrative, the slave narrative is basically just poor people trying to survive, working for what they have, what they can do, but still having their own. It was a work class. I don't hear any stories about like the roots, like folks getting beat and shit. I mean, there's stories about people getting Whoopings. I got stories of getting whoopings. That's just normal parenting. But I also hear stories like, there was like the Bible boys. They was they Negro. They were definitely Negro, and they was saying they would just go to farm, finding girls. You got a lot of freedom if you can go to farm to find girls. Like they didn't stay at where they lived. They went to different places. So they traveled. So and they like I still hear stories. My daddy was a truck driver, and I'm still finding about siblings and shit. So I'm not telling you that I'm not a hoe. I mean, I'm not kind of a hoe, but but I'm more on the gay side, so I don't got no kids. But yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about the men in my family in Texas, and if you're black in Texas, you probably know about the Bible man or somebody is related to them. Oh my gosh, it's fucking crazy. But yeah, don't believe the movies and TV shows. But Juneteenth is a time for freedom. It's a time where we recognize freedom, where the entire state of Texas recognizes freedom. As far as my family is concerned, we were already free. It wasn't like there was like a whole bunch of stuff going on. Yes, there were people who were still keeping their slaves and stuff because remember, there's no internet, there's no telephone, there's only telegram and stuff. So there's probably people still saying, "Hey, you guys gotta work for free." But the black people then, at the time in the 1800s, they were probably like, "Okay, well, this is all I got. So, what's the difference? Okay, I'm free. So, what am I doing now? What am I doing now?" So, people still continue to do what they did. It was just saying, "Okay, I'm free now." The Union soldiers came down to Texas and said, "Oh, y'all free?" They're like, "Okay, great, thanks." But how does this change my life? Are you giving me money? Are you? What are you doing? The federal government says, "Oh, you're free." Okay, so what does that mean? Are you giving me money? Are you giving me a house or something? What? Because whatever I've been doing it. So that's how Texas is. Texas is very independent, and so it's like I've been doing my own thing all this time. Most black Texans had their own farms, and basically they were just like, I guess it was like a tax. They were giving part of that to the slave owner, which is what we do now. Like if we gotta be real. But not my family. My family, they were already done with that because the guy that purchased them was already dead. So they owned all the land. They were the owners. They were educated. They were like, "Oh, we don't speak English. We uneducated." No, my family was very educated. They all could read and write. So I don't. Sometimes I watch these slave movies. I'm like, really? Because as far as my family's been told, like we were all educated. We all had education. You had to read and write. If you were being beat, you could be beat by your daddy, your mama, because you were not at the farm. You were doing bullshit. There's so many stories I've heard about people hunting pigs and stuff, and I mean, I'm a city boy. I don't hunt pigs, but I'm gonna have to share those stories with you guys. I'm gonna find them on ancestry.com, but I think I have to register again. I don't. Woo, it costs money. If you guys want to see that, you gotta like the video. My point of making this is that everything that you've been told about history is not true. Okay? Just saying. Just from my standpoint and my family, a whole different story. Now, a lot of y'all don't know your family history. You don't know your family history. You're just like going by what you've been told. You don't know your grandparents. You don't know your great grandparents. Nobody's told y'all nothing. So you're going by what you see on TV. So stop it. Find out your history. Find out your family history. Find out what people did before you. Okay? Hollywood is not everything. That's just bullshit.